It was 2:13 a.m. and the city outside our penthouse windows was still alive, glittering in glass towers and neon reflections. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting the spaces between the sound of her typing. She was still at her desk across the room, the glow of her laptop washing her face in sterile light. She hadn't looked at me in hours. Sleep wouldn't come. I reached for my phone out of habit, scrolling aimlessly. A notification buzzed in. At first I thought it was spam, but when I tapped it, I froze. Forwarded screenshots. From an unknown number, but the first preview line had my wife's name stamped across it. My chest tightened. Against every instinct screaming at me to let it go, I opened it. And there it was, a group chat. The header read, Exec Inner Circle Briefcase Fire, a space for her closest colleagues, her most trusted allies. People who smiled at me across dinner tables, who toasted me with champagne, who called me Mr. CEO with practiced respect. The first message was hers. He actually brought me flowers. Again. Like a dog dropping sticks at the door. A chorus of laughing emojis followed. Another colleague chimed in. At least he's obedient. House pets are loyal. Then another. Careful, or he might start asking for a raise in treats. More laughter. More flames. And then, her again. He knows his role. That's why I married him. A dog doesn't bite the hand that feeds him. I couldn't breathe. Each word slid under my ribs like broken glass. My hand shook as I scrolled, seeing weeks, months, of messages. Every photo I'd posted with her, every attempt at affection, every small gesture was a punchline. I was never a husband. I was a pet on display. I remembered the first time she kissed me, back when we were still. What, friends? Strangers tangled by a contract. I thought maybe I could warm the frost in her eyes. That maybe marriage, even if arranged, could build into something real. But here was the truth, I was nothing more than her leash accessory. Heat rose to my face. My ears buzzed. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I heard her chair shift, the quiet click of her heels across the marble floor. She didn't notice me, still thumbing through the glow of my phone like it was my last tether to reality. No, I couldn't swallow this. Not tonight. I stood. My voice cracked before I even realized I was speaking. Is this what I am to you? She stopped mid-step, turning. The icy poise of the CEO mask slid instantly back over her face. Her eyes narrowed, catching the glow of my phone. What are you talking about? Her voice was calm, controlled, like she was quelling an investor, not facing her husband. I thrust the screen toward her. The words, her words, shone between us like a blade. She glanced once. Then her lips curved. Not guilt. Not surprising. Amusement. You weren't supposed to see that, she said smoothly. Pouring herself a glass of water from the counter like we were discussing the weather. I felt my chest cave in. You call me a dog to your friends? To your employees? Is that what I am to you? She sipped slowly, her silence heavier than any scream. When she finally set the glass down, she walked closer, her heels a steady rhythm against the marble. I should have stepped back, but I couldn't move. You're overreacting, she said softly. It's just banter. They needed a laugh. You know how stressful this business is. My throat burned. A laugh? At me? Your husband? She tilted her head, lips curving. That smile was a knife drawn slowly across skin. She leaned in, her perfume wrapping around me like smoke, and whispered against my ear. Don't forget your place, you're nothing without me. The restaurant was the kind that whispered money through every detail. Gold-rimmed plates. A chandelier that looked like it had been stolen from a palace. The kind of place where waiters moved like ghosts and wine glasses cost more than a month's rent for normal people. I tugged at the cuff of my suit jacket as we walked in. She had picked the outfit, of course, slim black, perfectly pressed, a tie that matched her lipstick shade. I felt like I was wearing a costume. She, on the other hand, owned the room the moment we stepped in. Heads turned. Conversations faltered. The CEO in her black silk dress and diamond-studded confidence didn't just enter a dinner, she took command of it. I was just the shadow trailing behind. Ah, she's here. One of the investors, a man with a laugh too big for his small body, stood to greet her. He didn't even glance at me. She shook hands, her smile practiced and devastating. Thank you all for coming. I trust the drive wasn't too dreadful. When she finally gestured at me, it wasn't with warmth. This is my husband. He's here to keep me company so I don't get bored while we talk numbers. The table laughed. Real, sharp laughter, the kind that stung because it landed exactly how she intended. I forced a polite smile, my jaw aching with the effort. The first half of the evening was a blur of contracts, quarterly projections, and strategic alliances. I understood maybe half of what was said. My role was to nod at the right moments, to pour wine when glasses dipped low, to laugh politely at jokes that didn't involve me. She played her part brilliantly. Confidence. Elegant. Ruthless. And every so often, she used me as the punchline. Oh, he doesn't understand the market, but he looks good at the table, doesn't he? He's my good luck charm. Whenever he tags along, deals go through smoother. Each line sparked laughter. Each laugh chipped away at me. Then he walked in. The rival. Tall, sharp suit, smile carved from arrogance. He slid into the empty chair across from me, greeting her with a kiss on the cheek that lingered a second too long. His eyes flicked to me. Assessed. Smirked. Didn't realize you'd bring him tonight, he said smoothly, as though I weren't sitting right there. She tilted her head, lips curving. He insisted. I hadn't insisted. She'd told me to come. But correcting her in front of them would have made me look smaller. So I swallowed the words. And his smirk grew. The evening stretched on. The rival dominated parts of the conversation now, his voice like velvet laced with mockery. He spoke of acquisitions and mergers with casual brilliance, the kind of talk that made me invisible. And then, at one point, when laughter circled the table again, I felt his eyes on me. He raised his glass slightly, just for me, as though toasting my humiliation. I wanted to break the glass in my hand. Instead, I stood, muttering something about refilling my drink. The waiter reached for the bottle, but I waved him off. I needed the space. I needed to breathe. That's when I felt him beside me. The rival leaned in, his cologne sharp, his voice low enough that only I could hear. She'll never love you, he murmured, the words curling like smoke. Everyone knows. The stem of my glass creaked under my grip. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because the worst part wasn't his smirk, or her laughter echoing from the table behind me. The worst part was the truth in his voice. The penthouse was quiet, but not the comfortable kind of quiet. It was the brittle silence that follows a slammed door, the kind that hums under your skin. I lay awake on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness, when I heard it, her voice. Soft, low, almost, warm. It leaked under the crack of the study door down the hall. I sat up, heart pounding. She never spoke like that to me. Not even in the first days of our marriage, when I still thought we could bridge the distance. Her voice with me was clipped, efficient, businesslike. But now, muffled by walls and distance, it was different. I slipped from the bed and padded down the hall, the marble floor cold under my bare feet. The closer I got, the clearer it became. Soon, she murmured. A pause. Then a laugh, light, almost girlish. No, I promise. I'll take care of it. My chest tightened. I pressed my ear to the door. Who was she talking to at 1:47 a.m.? No board member would risk her temper at this hour. No colleague would make her laugh like that. There was a shuffle, her voice lowering further. You'll see. Just wait. He doesn't matter. The word seared into me. He doesn't matter. I clenched my fists until my nails dug crescents into my palms. Every instinct told me to burst in, to demand answers, to drag the truth out of her right there. But another voice whispered, wait, listen. Except listening hurt worse. I pushed the door open. The study lights glared harshly, catching her with the phone in hand. She froze for only half a second before snapping the call closed with a tap. The screen went dark. Her eyes lifted, calm and sharp, like I'd just interrupted a routine email. What are you doing up? My throat was dry. Who were you talking to? She arched an eyebrow, leaning back in her chair as though I were a child caught snooping. Excuse me. I heard you, I said, my voice shaking with anger I couldn't mask. You were laughing. Whispering. Who the hell was on the other end of that call? For a long moment, she just looked at me. Then she laughed. It wasn't warm like before, it was cold, slicing. You're paranoid, she said, rising from the chair with slow elegance. Do you think every word I say is about you? Not everything revolves around your fragile ego. That's not what. She stepped closer, cutting me off with a tilt of her head. You're insecure. Do you realize how pathetic you sound right now? Accusing me, creeping down hallways in the middle of the night like some jealous teenager. Her words landed one after another, like slaps. I swallowed, but the taste of shame was thick on my tongue. So you're saying there's nothing going on? That I imagined it? Exactly. She brushed past me, her perfume sharp, her voice soft but cruel. If you want this marriage to work, stop embarrassing yourself. Trust me, or don't. It makes no difference to me. And just like that, she was gone, the click of her heels vanishing down the hall. I stood in the study, the silence ringing louder than her words. For a long time, I stared at the desk, at the faint glow of her laptop screensaver. The logical part of me said to let it go, to crawl back into bed and pretend I believed her. But my pride, my gut, wouldn't let me. Minutes later, I heard the shower running. I glanced at her phone on the nightstand. The rational part of me whispered don't. But my hand was already closing around it. The message threads were clean. Too clean. Not a single late-night text. Not a single recent call log. She'd wiped them. But when I opened the trash folder, one fragment remained, half deleted. A careless mistake. The message was short. Just one line. I'll be free of him soon. My hand trembled around the phone. The words burned themselves into me, scorching away every last shred of denial. Free of him. She was talking about me. And she wasn't planning to wait much longer. The glass walls of her company headquarters gleamed like a cathedral of power. Everywhere I looked, people straightened at the sight of her. Employees in tailored suits bowed their heads slightly when she passed, as if she were royalty, not their boss. And then there was me, walking a step behind, clutching the weight of invisible chains. "Good morning, Mrs. CEO," someone said, their smiles wide, polished. Their eyes flicked to me for a fraction of a second. The smile faltered, then returned. I was an accessory again. A misplaced ornament in her empire. The boardroom was cold, steel and glass stretching like a fortress. Executives sat in neat rows, their eyes hungry as she commanded the floor. I sat at the edge of the long table, silent, nodding when appropriate. My hands folded tightly to keep from fidgeting. The presentation was sharp, flawless. She spoke of expansion, acquisitions, dominance. Her voice was a blade that cut through hesitation. And then, too soon, too foolishly, I opened my mouth. "Perhaps," I said, trying to sound measured, "you could consider adjusting the approach to." Every head turned. Her head turned. Her eyes found me like a predator spotting a trespasser. "What did you just say?" The room went silent. The projector hummed. My pulse roared in my ears. "I just thought." "You thought?" She laughed, sharp and humorless. "What would you know about any of this?" The silence thickened. Some executives lowered their eyes. Others didn't bother hiding the smirk curling at the edges of their mouths. My throat closed. I was only trying to help. She cut me off, voice rising. "Help? This is not your world. These are not your decisions. Stop embarrassing yourself, and me." The words echoed against the glass walls. I felt the burn of 100 eyes on me, each one slicing another piece off my pride. Something in me snapped. For once, I didn't swallow it down. I pushed back from my chair, the scrape of it startling in the silence. "I'm your husband," I said, my voice raw, trembling with fury. "You don't get to treat me like I'm." Her hand shot out, shoving my shoulder. The force wasn't hard enough to hurt, but the meaning landed like a punch. Her eyes blazed. "Sit down," she spat, venom dripping from every syllable. "You're a dog, not a partner." The room froze. Gasps. Shuffling papers. The kind of silence that no one would ever forget. I stood there, burning, humiliated, stripped bare in front of strangers. And then I walked. Not fast. Not slow. Just enough for them all to see me leave, shaking, my pride bleeding out behind me like a trail. The city blurred as I stumbled back to the penthouse, the words replaying in my head with every step. A dog. Not a partner. By the time I reached our bedroom, the silence pressed down like a weight. I opened the closet. My hands moved before I could stop them. The suitcase thudded softly against the floor as I dragged it out. My fingers fumbled at shirts, jackets, anything to stuff into the case. Each piece of fabric was a decision. Each zipper, a rebellion. When the zipper closed at last, the sound was final, like a blade drawn from its sheath. The suitcase sat half-packed in the closet, hidden beneath hanging jackets. Every time I looked at it, my chest clenched. Not yet. Not without a plan. I pulled open the drawer of my desk, the one she never touched. Inside lay the contract. Thick, heavy, My prison is bound in leather and ink. My fingers brushed the embossed cover. The memory hit me like a cold wave. Flashback. The day we signed. I sat in a glass-walled office while her lawyers slid the pages across the table. Each clause was a cage, each condition a chain. She sat opposite me, elegant and unreadable. "Sign it," she said. "It's security. For both of us." I remember hesitating, pen hovering. Her hand, cool and manicured, touched mine. "Don't think so hard. It's just business." I told myself then that love could grow. Maybe her walls would crumble if I proved my loyalty. So I signed. My name etched me into servitude. Back in the present, the words blurred as I flipped through them. Clause 14, the husband shall accompany the wife to all public functions upon request. Clause 19, the husband shall not interfere in company operations or business decisions. But then, Clause 27. My pulse quickened. Clause 27. Should either party breach conduct publicly resulting in reputational damage, the contract may be rendered void. Reputational damage. Her words, her humiliations, her insults, they weren't just pain. They were evidence. For the first time in months, a thin spark lit in my chest. I began gathering. Slowly, quietly. I snapped discrete photos of the contract pages on my phone. I opened a cloud folder under an alias, uploading each image. I bought a small recorder, tucking it in the inner lining of my jacket. The next time she cut me down in front of others, I'd capture it. I started saving every humiliating message, every careless comment from her. Each act felt dangerous. Each click of the camera shutter, each saved file, it all buzzed in my veins like electricity. Sometimes I swore I heard her heels echoing in the hallway as I worked, and I shoved papers away, pulse hammering. The penthouse had never felt so small. At dinner, I barely spoke. I couldn't. My mind was too busy charting escape routes, replaying her insults, and building a case. She noticed. Her eyes lingered on me across the table, sharp and suspicious. "You're quiet tonight." I forced a weak smile. "Just tired." Her gaze lingered longer than it should have, as though she could see the storm behind my mask. That night, I lay in bed pretending to sleep as the city lights crawled across the ceiling. She worked late in the study again. My phone buzzed. A new message. Not a text. A voice memo. I hesitated before pressing play. Her voice spilled out, low and deliberate, laced with venom. "You'll regret crossing me." The message ended. Silence filled the room, pressing against my ribs until I could hardly breathe. I stared at the screen, my blood pounding. She knew. Or at least, she suspected. The suitcase was heavier than it should have been. Maybe because every folded shirt felt like a confession, every pair of socks like a betrayal. The zipper rasped against my nerves as I closed it, and I froze. Her breathing. I could hear it through the cracked open bedroom door, steady, shallow, the rhythm of someone who believed the world was under her control. My chest tightened. If she woke now, it was over. She'd see the bag, see the resolve in my eyes, and she'd cut me down with a smile. I gripped the suitcase handle until my knuckles whitened. No sound. No hesitation. The penthouse felt alien as I walked through it in the dark. The marble floors gleamed faintly under the moonlight, mocking me with the cold shine of her success. I passed the dining table where she once introduced me to her colleagues as the most loyal pet I own. The memory struck me like a slap. I passed the window where I used to wait for her return, foolishly imagining she might come home with warmth instead of disdain. Every corner whispered, "Stay. Endure. You'll never survive without her." But my silence was my rebellion. My leaving was my answer. The door handle felt like fire against my palm. My heart thudded so hard I was sure it would wake her. One step out. Two. The hallway was cavernous and echoing, every footfall louder than it had any right to be. The elevator dinged, soft and cruel, like a chime announcing treachery. When the doors slid open and swallowed me whole, I let out the first real breath I'd taken in months. The city air hit me like a baptism. Cold, raw, free. I stood there on the curb with my suitcase, staring at the skyline that had once felt like a cage and now, maybe, could be mine. My pulse slowed. My chest ached, but not with fear this time. With something dangerously close to relief. I walked away without looking back. Morning light crawled through the blinds of the tiny rented apartment I'd found on the other side of town. The space was small, plain, but it was mine. No perfume of hers lingering in the air, no mirrors polished to reflect my servitude. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. Empty inbox. Silent. I almost convinced myself she hadn't noticed. Maybe she didn't care. Then the screen lit up. A single message. Where the hell are you? Come back. No name attached, she didn't need one. Her voice bled through every word. My throat went dry. She was awake now. And she would come for me. The ceiling above me was bare, cracked at the corner. No gold-plated chandeliers. No imported crown molding. No scent of roses delivered weekly by her assistant. Just plaster. Just silence. I lay there for a long time, listening to the hum of the old refrigerator in the corner of the studio apartment. My new kingdom. And for the first time in years, the air didn't choke me. I spent the morning hunting for work. Anything that would keep me afloat without her name attached to it. The penthouse had made me forget how money really worked. How numbers bled red in a bank account. Now, hunched over a chipped desk in my rented room, I sent out resumes, filled forms, and made calls. By afternoon, I landed something, part-time at a design firm that needed someone to edit proposals and keep schedules tight. Not glamorous. Not permanent, but it was mine. The manager didn't recognize my face. Didn't know me as her husband. He just saw my work history and nodded. It felt like breathing in my own name again. The first day, my nerves shook harder than my hands. No one opened doors for me here. No one called me, sir, with empty politeness. Instead, I fetched coffee for people who barely looked up. Sorted documents. Ran copies. At lunch, I ate alone on the steps outside, a cheap sandwich in my hand. The bread was stale, the cheese half melted from the sun. And yet, it tasted better than any 5-course dinner served at her table. Because I had bought it with money I had earned. That evening, when the manager handed me a small envelope, my first pay, I held it like it was glass. Barely enough to cover rent. Barely enough to matter. But when I saw my name scrawled on the slip inside, not hers, I nearly laughed out loud. It wasn't much, but it was the first thing that was mine in years. Is that really you? The voice snapped me out of my daze as I walked down the block. I turned. A familiar face, older now, with lines cut deeper into his skin. Daniel. My old college friend. The last person I thought I'd see. He blinked, stunned. Man, I thought you were dead, or something. You disappeared into her world and never came back. I tried to smile, but it came out cracked. Something like that. We ducked into a cafe. The conversation was easy at first, memories, jokes, the years collapsing between us. But Daniel studied me, really studied me. You look lighter, he said finally. Like you finally cut the chain off your ankle. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He leaned in. But, you've seen this, right? He slid his phone across the table. The headline glared at me in bold font. CEO's husband missing, rumors of divorce swirl. My throat went dry. The words swam on the screen. The world knew. My absence wasn't silent anymore. It was noisy. The first thing I noticed were the headlines. They multiplied like weeds on my phone screen. CEO's erratic behavior at board meeting sparks concern. Investors question her judgment after public spat. The Ice Queen melts, temper tantrum caught on camera. I scrolled until my thumb burned, my chest tight with a mix I couldn't name. Satisfaction, maybe. Or a ghost of pity. For years, she had been untouchable, polished, ruthless, admired. But now, cracks were spreading across the glass facade she built so carefully. And for the first time, I wasn't standing beside her, holding the leash she fastened around my neck. At work, her name came up often, always in whispers. Did you see the clip? Someone murmured over coffee. She tore into Harrington in front of everyone. He's going to sue. I heard she fired 3 assistants this week. I pretended not to listen, but every word hit. Later, in the corner of a bar after hours, a rival CEO laughed loud enough for the whole place to hear. She's slipping. About time. The Queen's crown is tilting, and I'm right here to catch it. The smugness in his voice should have thrilled me. Part of it did. But another part, a smaller, weaker part, wanted to slam my glass down and tell him to shut up. Even after everything, some twisted loyalty still burned in me. Come with me, my manager said a week later. Networking event. Could be good for you. I didn't argue. A room full of strangers, business cards, and cheap wine was safer than sitting alone with my thoughts. The venue pulsed with chatter when we arrived. Crystal glasses clinked. Suits gleamed under chandeliers. The air smelled of ambition, perfume, and expensive lies. Her name was on too many tongues. She's losing it. She'll bounce back. She's bleeding. Sharks are circling. I kept my head down, until the room shifted. A ripple passed through the crowd. Heads turned toward the entrance. And then she was there. She wore control like a gown, elegant, dazzling. But I saw it. The fracture beneath the shine. The faint tremor in her hand as she raised a glass. The way her smile held for half a second too long before cracking. The room buzzed around her, people swarming, cameras flashing. But her eyes found mine. Everything else disappeared. Her lips parted. She froze in the middle of a sentence, mid-performance. And then, like a sleepwalker, she crossed the room. The crowd parted for her, confused, expectant. She stopped inches away, perfume suffocatingly familiar. Her voice was soft, broken, meant for me alone. Don't leave. Her words from the gala stuck to me like a thorn under the skin. Don't leave. It was ridiculous, really. 2 syllables, whispered so quietly no one else even noticed. But they kept replaying in my head, over and over, like a broken record. And worse than that, some part of me wanted to believe her. That part made me sick. The knock came at midnight. Sharp, impatient. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. But when I looked through the peephole, my chest went hollow. It was her. Not in her usual armor of silk and diamonds, but in a dark coat, her hair pulled back, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. Even like this, she looked out of place, like royalty standing on a crumbling doorstep. I opened the door halfway. How the hell did you find me? Her lips curled faintly. You forget who I am. I can find anyone. She stepped inside before I invited her, gaze sweeping across my small apartment. The bare walls. The single chair. The fridge humming in the corner. Her expression was unreadable, disgust, pity, maybe both. This is where you've been, she asked softly. I crossed my arms. Why are you here? She hesitated. Then, with a strange break in her voice, she said, I came to apologize. The word felt foreign on her tongue. But the apology was a trap. I shouldn't have said the things I did, she went on quickly, words rushing like she wanted to get them over with. The group chat, the dinners, it wasn't about you. It was about appearances. Pressure. You know how business is. I stared. So mocking me was a strategy. Her jaw tightened. You think I wanted to? You think it was personal? I was protecting us. There it was. The pride, sharp and shining through the cracks. Even on her knees, she had to tower over me. You're lying to yourself, I said. She took a step closer, eyes flashing. I gave you everything. The life you had with me, no one else could give you that. And without me, you're. Don't say it. Nothing. The word hit like a slap. Silence stretched between us, taut as wire. I could smell her perfume, expensive and suffocating, wrapping around me the way her power once had. But not anymore. I gripped the edge of the door, swung it wide, and then slammed it hard enough the walls shook. Her voice called out once through the wood, muffled but desperate. I didn't listen. Her scent lingered long after she was gone. Freedom didn't come all at once. It came in small, quiet doses. The first time I paid rent with money I earned myself. The first time someone at work said, "Good job," without attaching her name to mine. The first time I slept without waking her voice in my head. It wasn't glamorous. My apartment was still bare. My dinners still came in takeout containers. But each win, no matter how small, felt cleaner, sharper than anything I'd had in her mansion. Because it was mine. At first, people didn't know what to make of me. I was the CEO's discarded husband, the one who used to trail behind her at galas like a well-dressed pet. But time did strange things. At a small industry mixer one evening, I noticed the shift. The same men who once smirked at me across candlelit dinners now nodded, extended hands. Impressive work on that logistics project, one said. You've got a sharp head for numbers, another added. And then, the kicker. Ever thought about partnering? We could use someone like you. It was one of her rivals, a man she loathed. And here he was, looking at me not as baggage, but as an equal. The irony tasted like steel on my tongue. I kept my composure. Didn't flinch, didn't gloat. Just shook his hand and let the respect wash over me. Inside, though, something shifted. I wasn't just surviving. I was standing. And for the first time, I wasn't thinking about how she'd see me. The meeting stretched late into the evening, ideas bouncing, numbers scribbled on napkins, laughter breaking the stiffness. I felt it then, the hum of possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, I was building something that didn't have her fingerprints on it. And then the doors slammed open. Every head turned. She stood in the doorway, framed by the harsh light of the hallway. Coat draped like a cape, eyes sharp enough to slice. The room fell silent. Glasses stilled in midair. Her gaze cut through the crowd and locked on me. I felt the weight of it, the old chain she thought still bound us. She didn't look at anyone else. Didn't acknowledge the whispers rippling through the room. Her voice carried, steady but threaded with steel. "You're still my husband." The ballroom was all glass and chandeliers, polished marble floors reflecting back the sharp shoes of every man and woman who thought they ruled the city. I almost turned back at the doors. I could still feel the ghost of every laugh, every smirk I'd endured in rooms just like this. Her colleagues, her rivals, they'd all seen me humiliated more times than I could count. But I walked in anyway. Alone. Eyes turned. I braced for the sting. Instead, nods. Smiles. A polite handshake from a man who once called me her lapdog. "Good to see you here," he said, as though I'd always belonged. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. The evening moved like a strange dream. People asked about my work, my projects. They listened. They treated me as if I had weight, as if my voice mattered. It was disorienting, like stepping into a mirror world. And then the air shifted. Her entrance was unmistakable. The doors parted, and there she was, in black silk, diamonds catching the light, every step calculated. The room had always bent around her. But tonight, it didn't bend as far. I saw it in their eyes. A hesitation. A question mark. Her empire was cracking, and they could smell it. She saw me. For a moment, her composure faltered. A flash of something raw in her eyes, panic, maybe. Then the smile returned, brittle and sharp. She crossed the floor like it was still her kingdom. "Darling," she purred, voice just loud enough for nearby ears. "You look, well." I didn't bow. Didn't flinch. Just lifted my glass slightly and said, "I am." Her smile froze. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Not here. Let's talk, in private." "No," I said, flat. Her hand twitched, tightening on the clutch she carried. "Don't do this." The words were meant for me, but the room heard them. Heads tilted. Conversations faltered. And then, in front of everyone, she broke. Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist with a strength born of panic. Her eyes glistened, and her voice cracked. "Don't leave me." Silence. "Every eye in the room is on us." She tried to mask it with a laugh, but it curdled in her throat. She said louder, desperate now. "I need you." The queen on her knees. The one who had called me her dog, now clutching at me like one herself. And before I could find words, a low chuckle cut the tension. A rival CEO stepped forward, a man she hated with venom. He looked me up and down, then smirked at her crumpled form. He clapped a hand on my shoulder and said, voice carrying across the marble hall, "How about a partnership? I think we'd do well together." The room buzzed. Her knuckles whitened on my wrist. For the first time, the chain wasn't around my throat. It was around hers. I thought she'd try to corner me with lawyers. That was her style, contracts, clauses, chains dressed up as signatures and silk. So when she asked to see me after the event, I braced myself for another negotiation. Another attempt to leash me with paper and power. But when I walked into the quiet hotel lounge, I didn't find the CEO. I found the woman I had once loved, stripped raw. Her makeup was smeared at the edges, as if she hadn't bothered to fix it. Her dress hung looser, her posture brittle. She didn't stand tall when I entered. She sat small, almost crumpled, a glass of untouched whiskey trembling in her hand. For the first time in years, she didn't look untouchable. She looked human. "You hate me," she said before I even sat down. Her voice was low, cracking around the edges. "And you're right to." I said nothing. She laughed weakly, shaking her head. "You think I did it because I despised you. Because I wanted you small. But the truth is worse than that." Her eyes lifted to mine, and there it was, the thing she had never shown me. Fear. "I loved you," she whispered. "More than I should have. And that terrified me." The words felt like glass dragged across my chest. She went on, words spilling now, desperate. "I was raised to believe love is weakness. That if I leaned on anyone, they'd use it to destroy me. So when I felt it, with you, I fought it. I mocked you. I kept you beneath me. Because if you stood beside me, if I admitted I needed you, I would have shattered. Her fingers clutched at the glass, knuckles white. Do you understand? It wasn't hate. It was fear. I stared at her. The same lips that once smirked, spitting venom in boardrooms, now trembled around words I had begged for and never heard. She put the glass down, reached across the table, her hand barely steady. I always loved you, she said. I just didn't know how to show it. I thought if I chained you, I'd be safe. But it only proved how weak I really was. Her voice cracked into a sob. Don't leave me, please. Don't. For a moment, my chest betrayed me. My throat tightened, my hands shook. I remembered the nights we shared before the contract, before the cruelty. The warmth of her laugh when it wasn't sharpened into a weapon. But then the other memories came. The leash at dinner. The phone calls in the dark. The group chat where my name was a joke. The silence is heavier than love. I pushed back from the table. Her hand reached for mine, but I let it fall. She looked up, eyes wet, desperate. And I told her, voice steady, each word cutting through the space between us. I'm not your dog anymore. The summons came in a crisp, white envelope. No shaky handwriting this time. No tear-stained voice memos. Just a formal letter with embossed lettering and my name typed in bold. She was done begging. She was back in armor. The boardroom smelled of leather and cologne. She sat at the head of the table, flanked by two lawyers in dark suits, every inch the CEO again. Cold. Untouchable. Her eyes, though, they flickered. A little too fast. A little too sharp. Sit, she commanded, like we were back where we started. I didn't sit. I dragged the chair out slowly, letting the sound of metal scrape across the polished floor. I wanted her to feel every inch of the imbalance shifting. She slid a document across the table. The paper was thick, the ink fresh. A new agreement, she said evenly. One that reflects recent changes. I didn't touch it. She continued, her tone clipped, rehearsed. You'll retain certain freedoms. Public independence, private obligations. A partnership. The word tasted like poison in her mouth. I finally leaned forward, scanning the first page. The clauses jumped out at me: exclusivity, financial control, restrictions dressed up in soft language. A leash dipped in honey. I almost laughed. You're still trying to own me, I said quietly. Her jaw tightened. This is protection. For you. For us. For you, I corrected. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably. She waved them silent. Her mask cracked just slightly. You think you can survive out there? Without my name? Without my resources? You'll be swallowed whole. Her voice was sharp, but her hands trembled just enough to betray her. You're scared, I said. Her eyes burned. I'm not scared. I'm in control. No, I leaned in, locking eyes with her. You're desperate. For a long moment, we stared across the contract, the same way we once stared across vows we never meant. Finally, she smirked, her old weapon. You won't walk away. You can't. The original contract is ironclad. You know it. I let the silence hang, thick and heavy. Her victory smile spread slowly, as if she believed she had me in her fist again. Then I smiled back. You're right, I said. It was ironclad. Her smirk faltered. Was? I pulled a folded document from my jacket, slid it across the table. I avoided it. Weeks ago. Her hand froze on the page. The lawyers leaned in, scanning rapidly, eyes widening. Her breath hitched. I stood, pushing my chair back with deliberate calm. The contract lay between us, the chains she forged now nothing but paper. The night opened above me like a wound, spilling rain. I left the boardroom without looking back, the echoes of shredded contracts and stunned silence following me into the storm. My jacket clung heavy to my shoulders, my shoes slick against the pavement. But for the first time in years, I felt lighter than air. I thought I was alone. But then I heard her voice. Wait. I turned, and there she was, not the CEO, not the untouchable queen who used to snap her fingers and command the world. She was just a woman in heels sinking into wet concrete, mascara bleeding black streaks down her cheeks, hair plastered against her face. She stumbled toward me, her voice breaking. Please. Don't leave me. For a moment, my chest tightened. She'd never begged before, not once. Even her apologies were laced with superiority. But tonight, she dropped it all. She fell to her knees on the soaked pavement, clutching at my coat. I don't care about the contract. I don't care about the company. Just, don't walk away. Her tears mixed with the rain, dripping down trembling lips that once smirked at my pain. I was scared, she whispered, shaking. You made me feel weak. Every time you looked at me like I was more than my empire. I didn't know what to do. I thought if I controlled you, if I caged you, I could keep you. Her fingers dug into my sleeve like claws. I loved you. I still love you. Don't punish me for not knowing how. The rain roared between us. For a long time, I stared at her, at the woman who once paraded me like a pet, who called me dog in front of strangers, who twisted love into shackles. And maybe once, long ago, I would have believed her. Maybe once I would have bent to that trembling voice. But not anymore. I knelt slightly, pried her fingers from my coat, one by one. Her grip fought me, but I didn't flinch. You had your chance, I said softly, almost kindly. And you broke it. You broke me. Her breath hitched like glass shattering. I straightened, stepping back. The space between us filled with rain and silence. She reached out once more, her face a ruin of desperation. Please. I shook my head. No, I whispered. I'm not your dog anymore. Her sob followed me as I turned away, footsteps splashing through puddles. The city blurred in silver streaks, headlights carving through the storm. My pulse beat steady, unshackled. And as I crossed the street, the words slipped out, not to her, not to anyone, just to myself, to the night, to the freedom I'd clawed back. I was never hers to keep. The rain swallowed the rest, washing the chains from my skin.